And then write down, the word is, one word is, that I want you to look at this morning, we're going to be looking at as well as S-O-P-H-I-S-T-R-Y. And then we're going to look at another word in just a few moments. R-E-F-U-T-A-T-I-O-N.
First word was S-O-P-H-I-S-T-R-Y.
S-O-P-H-I-S-T-R-Y.
What's today's date?
Today is the 30th. First Corinthians and another word I want you to write down is the word discernment. D-I-S-C-E-R-N-M-E-N-T. Discernment. I do believe that we as Christians need to have an understanding of God's attributes, which gives us truth that is necessary to grasp God's will for our lives. On a given day in our lives, we are exposed to so many different avenues that are trying to encounter our mind to help us determine what we should do or not to do. Should we buy this? Should we not buy this? Should we believe this or should we not believe that? And we as Christians need to have the ability to be able to discern what we're hearing and to accept it as truth or fallacy. And that's another word we'll be looking at in a few moments as well. There are arguments the Christian will encounter, a number of shady claims and arguments. On a given day, if you have email or if you have post office box, and it's all over the country, is you will receive an email saying that you have been found to have been given an inheritance of at least $1 million, and we are asking you to give us information that will help determine that you are the right person. And if you'll send us at least $100, we will help you see how much of that $1 million is yours. And you give the information. And if it didn't work, people wouldn't do it. Secondly, the last one was in the Shady Lane, not Shady Lane, but up in Connecticut, or wherever that was, where almost 4 hours after the shooting, one person in town already put on the website that she was taking money for a funeral of a nephew, and it was a false lie. And that's the nature of the beast. So we as Christians need to have a discernment to understand what we are to be doing. So we need discernment. Therefore, discernment, let me give you a definition of discernment. So many such arguments may sound strong, and some may even effectively persuade crowds of people. But the measure of godly logic will remain the truth, not the effect. God's truth, not the acceptance of man. So we need to learn that the argument put out there is not the persuasion, is I can persuade you to believe a lie.
Well, he's very persuasive.
A persuasive person can get you to believe a lie. My personality and my form of speech is not designed to persuade you with emotion. Preaching, as a general rule, in our area is the art of persuasion. You are persuaded by my emotion rather than what I'm saying, because you have to carefully listen to what I'm saying, and it's not, the entertainment is not my persuasion. I don't entertain you with emotion, I entertain you with truth. But so much of what we hear is through persuasion. But the measure of godly logic will always remain the truth. The word discernment, let me help you with discernment. Every Christian needs to learn how to have discernment. Discernment describes the ability to separate truth from merely persuasive rhetoric. It sounds so good it has to be true. It is usually false. It's a fallacy. From merely persuasive rhetoric. Persuasive rhetoric is very dangerous if you are persuaded by rhetoric. And Christians must train their mind how to discern rhetoric from truth. And Paul reminds the Corinthians that he purposefully avoided cunning rhetoric in favor of the plain, powerful gospel. Look with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. So, if in 2013 I can help you in the art of discernment, and that you will not fall to fallacies that you often hear, it would be a feather in my cap. I don't want to see people fall away from the church or from the Lord due to poor discernment. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. And when I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or of wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. And my message and my preaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not rest on the wisdom of men, but on the power of God. And we often hear fallacies concerning God, His self-existence, His knowledge, His self-sufficiency, His holiness. And historically, however, people give into the temptation to trick and dupe others by using persuasive words rather than godly wisdom. Normally, we are duped. We have fallen prey to trickery. Advertisement is trickery. We don't read the small print. It sounds good, so we do it, and costs ourselves a lot of headaches because it does sound so good that I remember in seminary back in '66, I was approached by a man who said that he was selling magazines. All of us have been duped by that. And there were 30 magazines that I could buy that I didn't need for $1 a week. But obviously I didn't want to pay $1 a week, so I could pay $30 a month that I didn't have. And they wanted to sign the contract. So I was duped with that. The only way I got out of it was I was not 21, and you can't do that unless you're 21, and so the company got in trouble. But we often sign our name to something and find out later it's a trick to get us to sign our name to buy something, and then we don't want to buy it. And as a result, when I sold Mutual of Omaha Insurance, you wanted them to sign as quickly as you could, and I learned how to put a pen in a person's hand with a pen. They didn't have to do this once I put it in their hand. Once I put it in their hand, they immediately, it was, when some people hand you a pen, they hand it to you this way, and you have to wiggle it around. I learned how to place that pen in that person's hand and be guided to that line so they could sign it. But what they passed a law was that signature they can change their mind in 10 days now. Just because you sign it doesn't mean you can get out of it. Because men were trying to get you to do that under false pretenses, and you were stuck with it. So the government came up, said, though you signed, you still got 10 days to get out of it. So we need to be discerning with truth. And people say, well, and all the time people are arguing with you on a consistent basis. You'll tell them the truth, and they'll say to you, but that's not really the truth. And they'll argue with persuasive speech that has nothing to do with the truth, but it seems persuasive, and you'll say, well, maybe you're right. Maybe God didn't create the universe. Maybe it was through evolution. Historically, however, people give in to the temptation to believe a lie. Aristotle provided the first systematic examination of logic, and he wanted to train, he hired people, trained, how do you pronounce that word, rhetorician, the person, that rhetoric, IANS. In other words, they were people who were trained to persuade you with their speech. He hired them because of their ability to persuade you to believe a falsehood. They were gifted in convincing you that 2 + 2 was 6. And when they got finished with it, you say, well, maybe it is 6. Your head said 2 + 2 is 4, but when they got finished, you would say, maybe he's right, maybe it is 6. And many became rich and famous And this group of, it's called, I gave you the word before I came in here, SOPHISTS.